All right, I'd like to open this meeting. Samantha, on proposed resolution number three, you leaving that in there?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Ordinance approving the designation of Masonic Research. We're going to hold that. The mayor wants us to hold that again. He's still working on that?
That's a sale of URA's properties.
Yeah.
Yes, I have been in contact with them. We are still trying to negotiate an option contract. I have advised them that we are looking to move forward, so I'm hoping to get a response back and make some headway.
Okay. Ordinance amending city codes. Disregard that one for right now. Next one is we're going to hold the ordinance public hearing on consumption of cannabis. Can you give us an update on that?
We're working on just some amendments to the actual piece and hopefully have that to you with an updated version.
Say again?
We're working on some amendments to the prohibition. There was some concern about the definition of a public place. We're working on those amendments and we'll submit an updated version to the council.
So 9 is going to stay in committee.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
10, we're going to be pulling 10 out.
Yes, and then the 7 o'clock, we're going to amend it so it's correct for the public hearing and then revisit it for the vote.
All right.
What are we amending?
So I'll just briefly run through these so everyone is clear. They were very minor amendments. They didn't really affect any of the actual text of the document. It's just there were some issues about language. So with respect to ordinance number 10, hold on.
Drew's going to hand out all the updates for everybody so you can see the highlighted differences.
So Joe, the only thing is that we're changing the be it ordained. It's going to read as section 2-29-361 entitled marijuana dispensary / retail, and then it's going to stay as hereby added to the code of ordinance as follows. And it says to read as follows. And then the other one was on number 1 under applicability. It's going to add the component where it says, and all conditions and or regulations license issued by New York State Office of Cannabis Management. That was on the first one. There's nothing on the second page on ordinance number 10. The other one was on number 11. It's going to read the column.
No, I was told we're going to be discharging 11.
No, we can't.
So we're not going to discharge it now?
No.
We can't we've already called for the public hearing. We
Okay.
can't discharge any of the pieces. It would be easier just to make the amendments on the
You
floor.
got the amendment?
Yeah, that's what I'm reading to you.
Okay, go ahead and look at it.
Okay, so then the next one is
We're going to pull this thing, right?
the city of Utica is hereby amended by adding the entry X for marijuana dispensary / retails in the column supplemental regulation. So it's just going to add that amendment to column.
Right, and then 12, you're going to do the same thing? What are you going to?
And then
We're all-
12,
And we're all good with this? Everybody agrees
Yeah, I'm
with
fine
this, or
with
we're
it.
gonna, huh?
No, we're fine.
Okay.
and then the other component should said be it ordained, section 2-B, parentheses 2 is hereby added to the code of ordinance as follows. Now, we also have to make the amendment under C, the attached map. It says now therefore be it resolved that,
I can just explain that one.
Yeah.
We had to add, so this is the first actual amendment to the actual map.
This one?
And because,
because we got to add
yes,
the
and
component.
because the council is holding the public hearing, the council is responsible for declaring themselves lead agency for seeker purposes. So that motion will just have to be made, and that's included in that piece. That was left off my initial submittal, so.
They're the same things that we were doing last meeting, but we had to call for the public hearing.
Right.
So we couldn't pass them.
All right, then on 13, we're going to do the same thing? You got changes?
13 is just that section 2-29-114 to the code of ordinance is hereby amended to include the following subsection. And that's it.
All right, and then we're going to be pulling 14 as well.
Correct, and there's no changes to 14.
14 doesn't change.
Right, and,
So we're starting with, we're going 11, 12, 13, and 14.
Yes.
We're pulling those four.
okay, and then,
And amending 11, yeah.
What about 9, the public canvas?
No.
That's staying, right? Okay.
Yes.
all right.
All right.
And then what, now, Councilman Urban, apparently we're going to pull out yours on, it's number 5, proposed ordinance number 5, ordinance approving designation of who's on Kadrazovitz as an eligible qualified project sponsor pursuant to Article 15. Is that good with you?
You are, hey, you're bringing it up.
Yep.
We had a hearing on it last time, and now we're like,
You're good with that, right?
same thing with 7, right?
Okay.
Yep, and we're good with
And
7.
7 is good too. We good on that too?
No, I don't think that is.
You want to leave 7 in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which one's 7?
That's right.
There's 2 7s, so which one, what do you?
This one here is Block A acres, is that it?
Right.
Like Q acres?
137, 139?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
We're voting on that, correct?
No.
Oh, we're not going to?
For Black Acres?
Okay.
Sam, your legislation.
Yeah.
There is
We're
a
not-
public hearing
Oh,
tonight.
there is.
There is.
You're not talking.
But we're not doing it?
I'd rather not, if I could, not do that.
Okay.
Call for the public hearing or or vote on it?
Vote on it.
Okay.
Sam, we're voting on you.
But not vote on it.
Okay, because tonight's the sale of it, so if he's not
Bob, you got those?
doing it, then we're not voting.
Just 5, right?
Well, they should call for the public hearing and have the public hearing.
Okay,
And
for the next,
No, no, no.
Public hearing was already called for tonight.
yeah.
The public hearing is, so they should act on the public hearing tonight,
Right.
but they do not need to actually vote on the piece tonight if they don't want to.
Okay.
But they still need to have the public hearing
Okay.
and make a note that we had the public
Okay.
hearing.
Yep.
Okay. That's it. Think we're done. Make a motion that meeting's complete?
Well, time out. What about number 3 and what about number 3? And then there's also number 7.
The first number stuff.
What did you put this in?
First number 7.
What did you put this in?
I don't know what that is.
Number 3.
I didn't put that in, that's you. What are you looking at? No, that's, you're looking at the wrong number 3.
Number 3 we got. It's only 3 I have.
Operation of self-beer and wine is the other package.
Anyway, you can talk about.
What's this one? This one's 425,
Oh, yeah.
2024.
I got- Let's put it on another 3. I'll have another 3 in my,
Hmm? But where did this come from then?
Which one are you talking about?
The ordinance amending this regarding sewer rents?
At 5-1.
Leaving this one.
Do you- What are we doing with that one?
well, we can vote to see if we want to take it out. I think there's some people that don't want to take it out, so we're gonna have a vote on that.
But that's the whole point of having the 5 o'clock meeting
Right.
today was.
So last Tuesday I went and I asked Becky, I said, can somebody be here from the administration to fill us in on the sewer, whatever happened with it? So I don't know. Well,
So,
Mike,
did
I.
anybody
if
show on
there's-
that at all?
Can,
You guys called the meeting, so
Yeah.
nobody sent an email. I mean, I didn't hear anything.
but I requested it, I just don't know if.
Who'd you
what-
request?
I asked Becky to ask the mayor to have somebody here for us for the 5 o'clock meeting,
Law's
to ask
here.
questions.
Who else do you need? I'm just, I'm curious. Who else would you need?
I don't know who they want for it, but I don't.
I guess
Mike
what are
just
the,
got here.
what are the questions and then we'll.
Explain us to, like, the whole process of how we got here. Why are we doing another one? Walk us through it. That was the questions, I guess, it is vague.
So my understanding of what had happened, and I'll let Mike jump in when he needs to, is initially when we sent this ordinance down, the rate was incorrect based on what was previously listed in the,
Eco.
in E-code. That being said, the rates that were actually being charged were something different than that. So what you actually passed was an increase on the wrong rate per E-code. But they have been charging a rate different than what is the rate set in E-code. There is an increased rate. I don't know if that is not making any sense.
It was in 2016, the legislation was last amended.
So he just went off
When Charlie,
legislation, not
when
what?
they put together the proposal, it was sent down on the previous one, not the current one. That's
Correct.
where the
So-
amendment came in at.
Correct. So we have been charging the rate from 2016?
Yeah.
Is that the year? 2016. When the legislation was sent down, it was sent down using the,
E-code, which was prior
which
to the
was
2016.
2014 or whatever it was the rates are. So we have been charging under the 2016 rates. You voted on the increase, we just have to correct the increase to reflect properly in the legislation.
So the
In
rate.
correct numbers.
Right, the rate increase that we passed is technically will still be this rate increase.
Well, I want to see how much
Because
it's
that's what was
gonna-
budgeted
I
for.
want to see how much it's going to cost.
It would still
our
be the
taxpayer.
it
How
would
much-
still be the same.
how
It was
much
like
is
10
How much
cents.
is everybody's going to go up, 10 cents?
The last one you voted on was actually the rate that was proposed in the budget that you passed.
Well, I was told it wasn't 10 cents. I was told it was more than that.
Okay, so 20
We're-
cents.
I was told it was more than
You're
that.
voting to put it at what everybody's been paying since 2016.
So it's
I
not an
just don't think
increase?
with right now, the citizens need another.
Jack, but they're already there.
And
I guess-
You already
been paying
voted
that
for it.
rate.
When you,
They're paying for it. So can I just
I'd
have the
like
floor
to-
for 1 second?
Did you
here?
just-
I don't think they're already paying.
did
it.
you just pay for the rate increase?
So-
Did you just did you pass it at the last time, just in January or
That was
February?
before the AIM funding.
You did. So, I
So-
mean, you can't change your mind when you already budgeted for it. You got to use a little common sense.
Can
Nobody
I,
wants to do it.
can
But
I
it's
have the
right.
floor
It's
here?
Right.
So can I ask anybody a question here?
Go ahead.
So we got, you guys, bulk of you guys been on this council for a long time with a different administration. So it seems to me, and I've been here for this is my 5th year. Seems to me, what went on in the other administration, nobody had a clue. You guys you didn't even know that the rate, you weren't charging the complete rate. Do you think a new mayor takes over in January, hang on, you think a new mayor takes over in January, wants to raise taxes 13%? Do you think he wants to come back here and raise the people 22 cents on water? Or do you think he has no choice for us? We're here to do what's right to correct the mess that this kid took over, this mayor. I shouldn't call him a kid. Okay, that's all I got to say. I mean, what mayor in their right mind would come in and propose a 16% tax increase if the city wasn't really in trouble? Do you think he just made that up? You think he's making this up now? Or do you think we're in desperate need to do it? That's all I got to say. Thank you.
All right, well, my thought on that is, I think the rate increase that he gave on us, the 13 and 7.5% rate increase, was an overtaxed. I think he's collecting already too much taxes from the citizens of this city, and I think we should step back and, I think the mayor himself should find
So-
the money to pay this.
Do you realize-
First of all, you
Do
guys
you
are
realize
confusing. Time
what-
out, Joe. You guys are confusing two of the same. Number one, you had a tax increase, which you voted for. This is separate, which is in the sewer fund. They are
Right.
two
I
totally separate.
I think the
two
mayor,
totally
I think the
separate
mayor,
things that you're
I think
talking
the mayor
about.
can find some money that, this year to pay the difference. Our
Jake,
sales
you're already-
tax,
Do you-
our sales
Yeah.
tax is way over. It's not. Yes, it is. It is.
And do you realize,
take a
do you
look at it.
realize if we don't have a balanced budget this year, you're gonna be 700,000 in the hole before you start? Do you
Right.
realize that?
And we had
Okay.
an overbalanced budget this year, Joe.
Then why'd you vote for the budget? Why'd you vote yes for the budget? You should have
So,
voted no.
Can,
Come on,
can we
man.
just,
Because it would have been
No,
vetoed
enough with the
anyway.
nonsense, Jack.
alright, but can
Really.
we just
You're
specify
combining.
It would have been
two-
vetoed anyway.
Two different
Yeah.
things.
Yes.
that,
So
Joe,
then
go
why'd you
ahead.
do it? Let the veto go.
Joe's talking, go ahead.
Just a few questions for the
I'll get to
administration.
next one.
Could we re-explain the sewer rents portion? Now, are we looking to pass this to match what people have been charged
So.
since 2016? Can you
So-
explain that a little bit more?
Okay, so we have always been charging the rates from 2016. That's the rates that we have been charging. That's the rates that we've been using. But when we sent the legislation down, we sent it down on the 2014, not seeing the 2016 was passed. When you guys voted on this, you voted on the increase, and when we sent it up to the water board to look at, that's when they caught it and said, we've already been charging that rate. So the intent was to increase it.
So what is the increase from what people have been charged?
Mike, do you know those numbers? Of what the increase is?
No, that's what they, 5%.
5% of what's on the books or 5% of what was people are actually paying? Because it sounds like there's a difference.
I believe the legislation now is to get it back to what was already there.
Without the increase.
I'll have my stuff.
I don't think that's the case. But
is.
if it is the case, then we want to.
So if I understand that portion, then there's no actual increase, it's just to match, so the books and the ordinance match
you have.
what people have been paying. Is that correct? Like, I want to get this straight
I'll-
on this.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case.
From whom? Miola?
But yeah, if we can get actual numbers, I think that would just help with all of it. What
I
it was, what the
told
books,
by the
what
mayor,
should
This is
be.
about a 50 cent
Who
increase per household.
Who gave you,
But
who
what
gave
is
you that
that-
information?
If I could just have a side note, this is just more for your own procedure. There's a lot of questions about who from the administration should be here. My advice and recommendation is if you want specific people to be in attendance or you're not sure, you need to list that because not all department heads are.
But that's
direct-
why I went to Becky and I asked her. I don't know who it is to ask, who is behind it.
I understand that. I'm just saying as a point, I mean, me and Mike are here, but
Yes.
if there's specific people like budget or whoever, some of us are only gonna be able to provide input that relates directly to what we're doing.
And I appreciate you guys
So-
filling in what you can, but it's definitely,
I
we
just
need the
wanna-
numbers.
I have a note from the mayor here, and the mayor says the sewer stuff is 50 cents a month. So I think the city should pay it, to be honest with you. They overcharge the city on the budget. The sales tax is coming way over than it was proposed to be. I think we should give the citizens a break. We need it this year.
Yeah, and I would still like the exact numbers, just like a printout of what it was in 2016, what we were actually charging, and what is the desired request and why.
8 years later, it's 50 cents.
That's those numbers. Sorry, I wasn't clear on that when I asked Becky to begin with, but that's,
But also, we already, the council already passed an increase.
the
It was
council,
still no, stop.
okay.
It was still an
You're in
increase. You passed an increase. A few weeks ago, whatever it was, you passed an increase.
You're right,
Now-
Mike.
Now we're sitting here saying, we can't possibly burden the taxpayer with another 25 cents,
Thank you.
If I can have the floor, it's
50 cents.
50 cents.
It's also the principle of this was passed, but it was also then immediately you find out 1.9 million in AIM funding is coming. And this is already on top of a budget that I think we are absolutely overtaxing taxpayers. I've conceded to the 6 to 8% was probably, excuse me, you're a guest in our council chambers, but this is, yes. But this is where I very firmly believe, and if we can talk this out, 6 to 8%, I agreed, was probably what was needed to correct what happened in the recent years. Anything above that, I'm really concerned. And this is another time of, we're trying to force something without all the facts and information, so just get the numbers.
All right, well, what?
Are you
what-
kidding? This is the
So wait,
most
no,
disrespectful
you wanna know
council
what? Here,
chambers.
I'll
It
put
is
a
insane.
little,
Can I still have the floor,
common
Jack?
sense, a
Jack,
little
can I
common
keep-
sense to your question.
Point of order. Can I
You don't
keep
point
the
of order
floor?
me.
Point of order.
Jack,
don't
you
have
wanted
the
this
floor.
information.
Point
Here.
of order.
She's not done speaking.
All right, here, let's go.
This
Finish
is-
crying me a river.
This is, if you guys want to wonder why we can't get along and figure out how to talk about the same page,
You
it's
care so much
the
about
decorum in this room. So if you ever want to actually pass legislation, maybe look at your actions and how we can keep discussing things moving forward. But for the lack of it, there was, I'll let Jack have the floor back. I'm so done with this room.
Jack,
Are you done?
I'm done.
All right. Sam, go ahead.
You, go, Frank. I'm just gonna explain the numbers, how simple this actually is.
Jack, I mean, you got $6 a year. We're sitting here arguing over this.
We shouldn't be, right? I
No,
think we
you
should give
just
the
pass it and
citizens.
get it over with.
I think we should give the
I
citizens
mean,
a
you
break.
gotta
Why
look,
should we
you
ding
gotta
them
look for
again?
your,
Do you guys work
I
for the mayor
can't
or
wait
the
to see
people?
you next January when this is up, when it comes back in your face. I can't wait
man,
to
you
see
just
it.
want to beat everybody up.
So
I mean,
here,
come
so,
on.
so can I explain it? So what ended up happening back in 2016, because we went on the actual legislation from them? We actually lowered the fees. So in order to get it up to the 10% that we actually, 10 cents that we actually had to do, we have to go back and we have to amend it. So in the 2016 legislation, and this goes by steps, the first 1,500 cubic square feet was $1.62. It goes to $1.98. That's quarterly billing on 4,000 cubic square feet. The next is 18,500. It goes from $1.35 to $1.65. That's at 55,000 square feet at a quarterly billing cycle. The next is 280,000 cubic feet. It goes from $1.13 to $1.38. That's a 840,000 cubic feet at quarterly billing. The next is 1.2 million cubic feet. It goes from 92 cents to $1.12. That's at a quarterly billing of 3,600,000. And the next one is over 1.5 million. It's at 62 cents right now. It goes to 76 cents. So what we did again was we lowered it because we were going back onto that 2016 legislation. The legislation that we have now amends that prior piece to bring it up to that. So again, it goes from $1.62 to $1.98, $1.35 to $1.65, $1.13. And again, this is all budgeted for in the sewer component of the budget. That has nothing to do with our actual budget that we pass for inside the city, with that we pass it as common council.
Councilwoman Colosso Montesta, could you just let us know what you're referring to with those
The
what
the
documents?
2016 legislation,
Yeah.
which they originally went by for the price, for the price, and this legislation that we have in front of us.
The 2016 document, is that what's actually being charged or what was on the books
Yeah,
that
we
was
lowered
incorrect?
it last time.
But
This past
what
time.
did we lower it from though before?
You lowered it because you used the 2014
I
numbers.
understand. So it was just the 2016 is what we were actually charging people.
Correct. So you lowered it.
I'm not trying to give people a hard time. It's just literally to see the numbers, and when you get pushback on that, it raises a
Nobody's
flag.
pushing you back, Katie, but it's common sense.
Oh my God! Let me
I'm
have the
giving you
floor,
the numbers. I
guys.
went and did the
It's
same
fine.
thing you could have
We're-
did. You know how to write legislation for.
We're good.
for-
I'm not going to vote on it. Thank you.
Oh, so hurt everybody. Hurt the city because you want to throw a tantrum. Because you don't know how to read legislation. That's really what it comes down to. You proposed 82 amendments for the budget this year. And you don't know how to read something on E-code to understand it? I'm not, Jack. It's old and it's tiring. We're gonna go talk about the towing legislation too for the 15th time. I'm not old. It's disgusting, Jack. Everybody was asleep at the wheel for the last 12 years that Rob O'Mary was in office. How'd that work out for you? You were. Understand it.
Jack, you gotta pick your
Can't
fights,
comprehend
man.
it.
$6 a year, pick your fights.
Are you guys
will
working for the mayor or the people? That's just what I want to ask. I don't know why it's a big deal to try to defend and get the exact amount
What
though,
hap-
for the people.
What happened to your 82 amendments to get the property tax down to 2%?
All right.
You working for the mayor or the people?
All right,
Should
let's
have
move on.
proposed it.
Let's move on.
So what are we doing with this?
Well, we can put it up for a vote to take it out of, we could put it up for a vote to take it out. Would you like to put it up for a vote?
So you wouldn't do it on the
floor. Or you wanna leave it?
anyways, you can't do it in committee.
No.
Just wait till that time's on the floor.
All right. Anything else?
I thought we were talking about the towing. You guys want to talk about the towing thing for the 15th time in 3 months?
No.
Are we gonna do that again?
A question for the
No, you
chief,
talked about.
chief of staff.
I'm not the one that signed the contract. The mayor did, but you guys, again, sleeping at the wheel, what he was
So I have a
doing.
question for the chief of staff.
Go ahead, Joe.
Do we have final numbers on those increases in terms of actual dollar amounts per year? Were you able to get more information on that?
It's in your budget. You can pull out your budget and you'll see what those numbers are supposed to be.
I don't have them readily available. I'll get them.
Okay.
So we're gonna leave this in committee now?
Yes. Or we can vote to take it out if you like.
Well, the budget is gonna run a deficit, and the sewer projects are gonna stop. We were ahead of the curve on it.
Right, that's it.
To adjourn?
All right.
Yeah, I'm good. Motion to adjourn?
Thank you.
Second.
Yeah, I'd like to call this meeting together, to order anyway, thank you. Thank you all for coming. Our first thing on the agenda is a guest speaker. I hit his name here, Dan from corporate, where did it go? Cooperative Extension. I'd like to turn the floor over so you can have your say. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
You guys want to grab the mic right there? Yeah. Sure. How you doing? Good evening, everybody. My name is John Adams. This is actually Dan Scharfars. He took the liberty of reaching out to the city clerk to schedule for us to come back and speak. The last time we had come up here to speak with all of you, it was a budget season time, and obviously attention was diverted, respectfully so towards that. We did schedule to come back here on the 17th, but I had unfortunately some health issues I had to deal with, and thankfully I have dealt with them enough to be able to come back and speak with you this evening. I'm happy to kind of lighten the mood after the earlier discussion with a great lifting topic, and that is lead poisoning. So, hopefully a little bit of brevity there will, lighten the mood and let you know now that we are here to tell you a few things. The things that we are going to tell you are, one, a little bit about the Part T legislation that was passed in the New York State fiscal 2023-24 budget. We're also going to be talking about how this legislation relates to lead exposure and a review of the negative health and societal impacts that lead to that lead exposure can have based on current scientific literature. We also have some material that which is shared with all of you, I believe, and that is actually a lit review that was done by Dan, looking at, I believe, 22 peer-reviewed scientific research studies. And then lastly, we're going to talk about how implementing a lead ordinance at a local level in advance of this state mandate could potentially benefit the community by giving it greater autonomy over our efforts to address lead issues, and by ensuring we have a policy framework still in place should the state resources that are going to be coming, and some are here already, ever be reallocated to other communities. This will likely involve, some mention of efforts on other cities here in upstate New York, just that have had worked with this and had success as well. Real briefly, just a little background. My background, I started working for the Neighborhood Center on May 2nd, 2010 in a contract with the Oneida County Health Department to be a data manager and sampling technician for one of the first 6 primary prevention programs that were funded by the New York State Department of Health. At that time, Kathy Bullwinkle had brought that program into the Oneida County Health Department with the blessings of the county executive. I have been into thousands of homes. I have done risk assessments. My name is all over county documents. I've sat in front of the Honorable Garrow for hearing administration, stuff like that. I appreciate it and like it when people, such as members of the school board like Joe Hobica call me the lead guy. I try to think of maybe moving up into the same realms of expertise as like those of Steve Darman, the homeless guy, So the thing is I just, wanted to make sure I'm coming from a place of well-intention. I'm coming from an agency called Cornell Cooperative Extension. We are not permitted, and I am not making any recommendations or asking anything of the council here tonight. We are very much taking the same kind of track that we did when the Oneida County Solar Committee had asked for information from us. Myself and Marty Broccoli at that time provided information that was requested by the legislators on that committee, chaired by David Buck. And then they were able to review it or ask us questions and then make their own independent decisions as to how to proceed or not. That was totally up to them. So getting back to it, and then if we can just get through this, I think our spiels are actually rather quick, and then if there's any Q&A, we'd be happy to try to address your questions as we can. So as I mentioned, the Part T legislation was implemented by the state in the 2023-24 legislative session. It created Public Health Law Section 1377, which creates 24 communities of concern outside the jurisdiction of New York City across the state of New York based upon data that was basically collected and provided, and I had made mention of when I was here at the Public Comment section March 3rd, in 2019 collated data and then provided in 22. There is a couple of year drag in data, particularly because a lot of times you have to scrub duplicate confirmed poisonings from blood lead levels that are mandated by the state at testing for ages year 1 and 2. And as that data is harvested and works its way back up to the capital there, that's kind of where you have that drag time. So anyways, recognizing that despite efforts in growing that primary prevention program model and funding not just those 6 original, but growing to the size of 16 local health department, county departments that had their own programs, these communities outside of New York City are just not able to keep up. And New York traditionally was a leader in lead poisoning prevention. You know, it banned lead paint 8 years before the EPA did. In New York, you couldn't buy it on the shelves in 1970 and all that stuff. But by data, the CDC indicates that New York State as a whole poisons more children annually than any other state in the country. And the data clearly shows, at least for Oneida County, that the bulk of the poisonings are happening in the 13501 and the 13502 zip codes. But 13501 in that data drop from 2019 was the second city and the 3rd zip code on the list. The top 2 above it were zip codes in Buffalo. Now, interestingly enough, if you go through that top 10 list, you know, and I can pull that data again, you know, Buffalo's there a handful of times. Utica, again, is there. It's the second city listed. Syracuse, 1 zip code gets mentioned in that top 10. I think Albany's there, but you never see Rochester. And Syracuse was there briefly. And the reason why I mention them is because those are cities that have engaged with doing their own approach to lead reduction. And again, that'll be mentioned at the end of this. So the Part T is basically requiring that these communities of concern, this will be enacted through the local health department, and I have had a chance to speak with a member of the advisory council on lead to the governor's office, Deborah Lewis. She is the lead coordinator, program coordinator for the Onondaga County Health Department. She's also a member of the Lead Free Kids New York Coalition, which the Lead Free Healthy Homes Mohawk Valley Coalition is part of. And I know it's a lot of coalitions, but you know, sometimes you got to join hands to make things happen. The minimum requirements on these new inspection requirements for rental properties is that they will be in the communities of concern, to which the city of Utica is part of that, and so is a portion of the city of Rome, I believe. They will have the requirement to inspect multifamily rental dwellings on a 36 or 3-month or 3-year cycle. At minimum, there will be a visual inspection, remediation, and dust wipe evaluation and/or clearance. We're an XRF, that is an X-ray fluorescent gun typically used by the health department or other certified entities to do lead paint risk assessments and lead paint inspections. The registry, there is a registry requirement that will mirror existing program requirements for issuing a notice and demand. So properties that are inspected and get failed will be put onto a rental registry, and properties that get inspected and pass will be put onto a rental registry. It has to be publicly available. And then this way, that's how they can maintain, you know, tracking when they have to go back in there and that 3-year cycle. It will be the responsibility at this time of your local health department, and for this city, that would be the Oneida County Health Department, to maintain the notice and demands, ordering remediation, and would be responsible for issuing a health department-based lead safe certificate. There currently are multiple models being proposed to allow the 22 communities of concern flexibility and implementation, and to provide data for program evaluation for future expansion. Some of the limitations of that minimum requirement that I just listed is that it does not require inspection of single-family single-family homes, owner on-site multifamily. So in other words, if you have a 1, 2, 3, or 4 unit dwelling, and one of those units is owner occupied, the other 3 units would be exempt from that requirement. And then there are also properties that would be exempt that have a family exemption. In other words, if you have, you know, like my daughter's living upstairs in that apartment or something like that, and then my grandkids up there too, whatever. So, and then it relies upon a standard, you know, bare minimum standard and paint stabilization that is the preferred methods of hazard identification remediation consistent with both Rochester and Syracuse lead paint ordinances. And with that, just to explain that a little bit further, that bare minimum standard essentially is that prior to, because they also have rental registries that are part of their city apparatus and codes, prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy from their codes department, the Department of Human Services for the city of Rochester will send inspectors in to do a visual assessment And if the visual assessment shows all interior surfaces to be devoid of any deteriorated surfaces, it would be chipping, flaking, peeling, scraped, all that other kind of stuff. If it's devoid of those circumstances, they will collect dust wipes. If the dust wipes comply with the current standard as issued by the United States EPA, then everything's good to go. They get the certificate of occupancy. If just the dust wipes fail, they'll order a cleaning, and then the property owner gets the liberty of paying for the second visit themselves because they should have done it right the first time. It also reduces the cost to the city of Rochester, but they also recoup those first visit charges through mechanisms such as just part of getting the permit and filing for the inspection and stuff like that. That is the basis of Part T. There is a lot of flexibility in there, and it is at the point now where the state is just asking local health departments what their plans are. We did reach out to the technical assistants contracted to the New York State Department of Health at the National Center for Healthy Housing. We had a conversation with them on Tuesday morning. Later that day, they were getting together and actually having a virtual meeting with all the other 22 local health departments to hear what they're planning on doing, if they're planning on doing more than the bare minimum. Are they working with the city diligently? Or are they just trying to take a hands-off approach and just trying to get direction other ways? I can tell you that Onondaga County Health has been very proactive in their community in Onondaga, as has the city of Syracuse, which passed their own lead ordinance in 2019. And I can tell you I have what their proposal was to the New York State Department of Health to indicate they plan on doing more, and because they care that much, their department is going to go ahead and try to plug gaps in that bare minimum to be more effective for the city of Syracuse. But again, that's kind of a partnership piece because the city of Syracuse already has their own pre-rental inspection ordinance as it relates to making sure hazards are cleaned up before renting them out. Essentially, trying not to use children as like testing devices, So that was the first part. The second part is going to be Dan coming in talking about how this legislation, Part T, relates to lead exposure and the impacts.
John, really briefly, and I don't know if somebody could touch on the basis of this, but I went through and I looked at the number, the amount of funding we've received for lead abatement inside the city of Utica. Back in 2019, it was 2.9 million.
Mm-hmm.
This past year was $4 million. We spent $1 million, I think close to something like that in ARPA funding. So $10 million has been invested. Like, how are we not getting to a point where we're seeing a difference in what money's being invested to try and clear up some of these issues? Because I guess that's kind of,
No, that's a
everybody
that's a great
is,
question.
we've done, and I showed you the legislation that we tried,
I know.
that we put in before, and
I know.
I guess that's kind of like where I'm at. Other than legislating, how are we making sure that the money that we're investing is getting to that point where it needs to be?
It's a combination of factors. Just as this organization struggles to keep cost in check because of rising costs, so do contractors' costs go up, so do materials costs go up, so does labor costs go up. And so it's not like there is like an expanding pool of funds. Once you get that over the course of 3 years, so like that first round of funding we got, I believe it was 2020 through 2023. That was like, that was marked by two things, COVID and then the inflationary era, right? So that was a part of it. The other thing is the number of production of units that you get out of that is like, you get like 88 units. But the effectiveness of that program is so good that because we have built a braided funding program, and so part of my role at CCE is I direct the Clean Energy Hub for NYSERDA. We get referrals and we make sure we're doing energy efficiency stuff. We also try to grab the hands of Amy's group up at Mohawk Valley Community Action Agency. So we try to get WAP in there too, so that way we can fully, insulate the area, get it ready for heat pumps for the time if and when natural gas goes cheaper than electricity. So we do put all these things in, but then getting back to answering your question, the reason why there's so much there, it literally takes specks of dust to elevate a child's blood. And I wish we brought the Dutch boy bucket that we have, an antique Dutch boy bucket that you used to mix paint in. And the formula for it was you basically filled, for the first coat, half of it was lead, and then it was a quarter linseed oil and a quarter of something else. And then the finished coat was like half lead and then half something else. So you're talking a gallon bucket that's half full of lead. And the number of people just in that 1 gallon mix is enough to poison like an entire city block of children. Just on the exterior of your typical 2-family flat that was built around somewhere between 1900 and 1940 that you find in Utica or the suburbs of Chicago or the suburbs of New York City or Buffalo and everywhere, has something like 52 pounds of lead caked into it. there's just, I mean, Councilwoman, there's just so much lead there.
No, and I get that. So like, is for a case, for example, so say somebody, and I'll let you, this is kind of like my last tidbit. But say, for example, somebody was born in New York City and they were tested, they moved to Utica, they tested for lead here. Now, does that case go against us, or does that case go against somebody that was born and raised in another facility?
First of
another
all,
area.
right, so, a traveling poisoned child as really, there's nothing to do with where they're living other than the fact that if they get tested and their primary address is at a house that has not been already part of an investigation. So you have to remember, when children are confirmed as elevated, there are laws in place that hold local health departments and the state Department of Health responsible for maintaining traction of this person and knowing where they're going. If a kid moves from county to county, they literally have to, data move and transfer the case management from one county health department to another.
Oh, and without a doubt, and I guess that was just kind of going back. I mean, are we familiarized when we say the cases are for us, are higher than, say, Syracuse, Rochester, so on and so forth? But does that account for the fact that maybe a child has moved here from another county health department that could be the reason that those cases are elevated? And I just say that because I guess that would be something that I was always interested in kind of thinking.
Well, I think the reality for the city of Utica is really along the lines of, A, it is growing. I was really excited at the last census count to see that Utica joined all the other cities along the canal to show growth from the previous count. I was saddened in the fact that we didn't grow enough to lift the overall population of the county where it is seated, like Rochester did for Monroe and Buffalo did for Erie and so forth. But the city of Utica, in my estimation, looks like it has bottomed out. In a previous life, I used to be interested in where districts were and wards and all that other stuff. And in the 2010 census data, it had shown that the city of Utica had experienced some shifting in demographics where the ward districts were. And I know there had been a proposal that had been put out there that essentially made it look like the 5th ward of Cornhill had gone from essentially a cube to missing a 25% chunk of it. That proposal wasn't passed, and I don't think there was any attempts at redrawing beyond that, and I think districts are kind of stayed over the last couple decades or whatever. But the reason why the planners at the planning department had proposed the district that way is because the bulk of the population growth that was happening was in that ward because of the high density characteristics of many of the families that call those neighborhoods home. Not surprisingly, also goes in hand with, and to your point, there is validity in what you're saying, but more so the refugee community coming in. You have some families that have 5, 6 children living in the second floor of a 2-family flat, which we all know is not, technically code rated for that many people in there. But at the end of the day, when the census comes through and says, hey, how many kids do you have? I've got 7, and you get those kind of numbers going too. And so I think there is a density there that's going on, and then, from the housing, maintenance standpoint, from things that were all out of our control, like the population loss, the economy. We're part of the Rust Belt, whether we want to be or not, you know what I mean? So as resources and neighborhood demographics change and things switch more from your traditional owner-occupied to rental capacity and things switch that way, and then there's also the effect of vocal, right? The community that is much more capable of explaining and communicating the challenges and facing that they have and advocating for themselves tend to get more of the resources. It's not the whole city of Utica that is drastically in punch. And if you look at heat maps and census tracts that have tracked where your major pieces are, we basically, you can see that it's the Parkway does a nice job of stopping it as you're heading south. There's a little niche that's starting to go up Oneida Street, right, where it's starting to get hotter. But that's the next place where you've been seeing that shift going from a 80% owner-occupied and rental to maybe 60-40 and stuff like that. And again, it's just, there's something to be said that if you're owner-occupied, I know in my house, if there's anything that goes wrong in my neighborhood, first thing I'm doing is I'm sending a letter to Mark Domenico on the email being hey, you got to get the guy over here, I want him to check this out, because I live up in the city of Rome, so. And there's a lot of confounding factors that go into that, and also, how close the proximity of people's homes are. I was telling somebody, and it might even been you, there's a real challenge with the fact that with some houses only being a driveway apart, And the fact that there's so much historical lead dust that's just all over New York State because I mean, that's how we became the Empire State. We use it in everything. It was in all of our industrial processes. And it's all still there. Yeah, we stopped making it, but it's still on the houses. It might be, in some cases, it might be underneath like a sheeting of one thing, some aluminum siding, and now it's got vinyl over that, right? But if you want to add a sunroom, eventually you're going to be cutting through that clapboard and you could be creating, a dust storm that's right there again. But it's just, there's a confluence of factors that are not unique to the city of Utica. And I think that's the important thing to realize, is, Councilwoman and everybody here, is that these challenges with the older neighborhoods are pervasive from Buffalo to Albany and down the Hudson to New York City. And as a result of that, that's why the state of New York and their budget mandated, the legislative branch in the budget session mandated that the New York State Department of Health create this Part T legislation, because these communities clearly need more assistance. And then the other thing I was just trying to imply during that explanation of the Part T piece and why it's going not just to Utica, but to 21 other locations, and again, Utica, Rome are being lumped together for this, is because this issue is a challenge everywhere. But what we are, as we're working through this, we're just also trying to help you understand that the reason why there is an allowance for different models and variety of approach is because not every city has passed their own local PRI, and not every city has the same relationship with their county as others. But I can assure all of you too, when we talk to the technical assistants, they are totally aware of the fact that there's all sorts of things. There's capacity, there's funds, there's political will, there's all that stuff. That's all out there. Again, we're just here to let you know that state mandate was passed. It is coming. The health department's gonna do it because they have to. And the state will put the heat on them to make sure they're doing it, so they stay and show progress at the same rate that these other 22 hotspots in the state of New York are. But I think it's important to also just let Dan get up here to explain briefly some of the other connections there, so you understand the wisdom that probably places like Syracuse and Rochester had when they decided they wanted to do something of their own.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you wait. But
No worries. Gives me more time to prep mentally. Thank you, John, and thank you, council members, for taking the time to hear us out today. As John mentioned, with the coming of this Part T legislation, this seems like a good time to discuss lead and the impacts it has on communities and individuals such as ourselves. Just this year, in fact, the EPA made an announcement that there is an unequivocal direct causal relationship between lead exposure, increased mortality rates, reduced cognitive abilities, and kidney failure. This was upgraded from their 2013 announcement stating that this relationship was only likely causal. So it's gone from being a possible causal relationship to a definite cause and effect relationship. Additionally, there's a lot of new literature, scientific literature, and existing scientific literature that suggests there is at the very least a correlation between increased levels of lead exposure and increased levels of criminal, violent, or otherwise delinquent behavior. In light of this, the Cornell Cooperative Extension has compiled the literature review that I've handed out to most of you. I apologize, I should have printed a few more copies. But that literature review reviews 16 of the most recent and relevant scientific articles discussing this topic in an effort to establish a consensus in the scientific community about this. What we found is of the 16 papers that we reviewed, 15 stated that there was a strong, statistically significant correlation between elevated blood lead levels and at least one of their metrics for criminal, violent, or otherwise delinquent behavior. Now, there are a couple choice facts that I felt like were relevant from this article that I feel are particularly compelling. One finding stated that for each reduction or each increase of 1 microgram per deciliter of lead in the blood could be attributed to a loss of $5,000 in average household income through the need to address behavioral issues created as a result of that lead exposure. Several other papers reviewed crime statistics, both current and historical, in communities. One particularly compelling one I found stated that during the phase-out of leaded gasoline in this country, that phase-out could be attributed to around 56% of the reduced rates in violent crime we saw over the next 20 years. And they also found that cities that increased the speed of this lead gas phase-out saw a faster drop in crime rates. Now, fortunately, Lead in the air through gasoline is not as much of an issue as it used to be. However, lead exposure is still very much a real issue, with the primary mode being, as John discussed, through lead paint and debris in old homes. So these exposure rates and the effects that they cause are still very much relevant. In addition to the literature review that the CCE created, I would also like to reference the council members to a 2022 study, a meta-analysis conducted by doctors Higney, Hanley, and Morrow. This was the first of its kind meta-analysis that, like the CCE literature review, reviewed 24 of the most recent and relevant scientific publications on this topic. And like the CCE literature review, it also found that there was a strong, statistically significant correlation between elevated blood lead levels and increased rates of criminal, violent, or otherwise delinquent behavior. Now, I feel like these findings are very relevant to our community because I know the incoming mayoral administration and the Utica City government has dedicated themselves to improving public safety in this community. Now, my role at the CCE prevents me from advocating for any specific policies or reforms, but I will say, given the rates of lead exposure we do see in this community, and given the scientific literature that we have compiled, if the council and the government is interested in further developing their public safety initiatives and in further improving their metrics, then expanding on our current efforts to address lead in this community and passing an ordinance to ensure that there is enforcement behind those reforms would be an excellent way of doing so. I want to thank the council members, all of you, again, for taking the time to hear me out today, and I wish you all a wonderful evening. Thank you. Of course.
So, growing up in the 60s and 70s, we had that lime green paint that everybody had in Cornell. That I remember.
Sure.
Once you paint it, it's encapsulated, just like, what do you call it, white epoxy, chalking, asbestos. Once you break it, when you encapsulate it, and you paint it over, because you new paints now, you paint over it, no more primer, no nothing.
Sure.
Once it's encapsulated, and once you break it, the lead's not gonna come out. Is that how I'm hearing this?
That is typically the case. Encapsulating and remediating lead usually lasts for, I think, 10 years was usually how long it takes for. John would know more on this topic.
Yeah, and just, because I grew up with all this, everything was painted the same color back in the
So-
70s and 60s.
Councilman, I'll give you the perspective as we receive it when we become certified as EPA risk assessors for this. Typically, certified firms have to be risk assessors to do that types of screenings for like large multiple apartment complexes and so forth like that. The risk assessment criteria is the basis for child elevation inspections and stuff like that as well. In the EPA risk assessment criteria, there is a process for what they call encapsulation. But it is a very time-intensive, and it does require a lot of preparatory work and a lot of post-application work. And what I mean by that is first of all, a risk assessor has to determine if the surface is viable for encapsulation. And to do that, they are required to do a brief incision in the shape of an X, clear tape over it, press that down, rip it off. And if a certain amount of paint peels off on that rip, it is considered not viable. After you do the encapsulation with a very specific model type of paint, it smells horrible, and you have to let it air, dry at a certain rate of humidity or a certain number of, days towards the cure. Then to go back through all the applied areas, and you have to do that same scoring test again. And if it starts to peel off more than is allowed, it is considered a failure effort of encapsulation. It is not considered abated. The more typical things is when we think about painting surfaces over, it's really a recognized form of paint stabilization or an interim method. I also just want to preface that HUD has a really interesting definition of a permanent method. A permanent method of reducing reducing the hazard presented by the lead is something that would last for 20 years or more. So I just wanted to make sure everyone's aware that the permanent that many of us probably grew up with is a little bit permanent differently than, what HUD issues as a definition. The interim controls, I definitely know what you're talking about. I definitely have done, work on those houses. I know I had the asbestos tile siding and stuff like that, but it was over, the original clapboard. But same thing, like I remember my grandfather just being, like ripping off the piece and then just sticking something underneath there, stuff like that. But the ripping off the piece and painting and doing all that, that was part of the maintenance. And since I and he weren't doing that 40 hours a week, we weren't exposed to it. And because we addressed it, it wasn't something that was a continuous chronic exposure event. And that's kind of the same thing that happens with like interim controls, because interim controls are exactly that. They're meant to be just for the interim. And they generally have like a policy accepted lifetime of like 3 years. But man, I don't know about any of you that have like wood stairs to their house. If you paint those and you have 4 seasons in upstate New York and you actually walk on them, the paint's gonna have to happen like every spring.
I got one other question.
Sure.
When did lead paint stop being manufactured?
It's still manufactured today. I'm so glad you asked that. Yes, it is manufactured today. The Consumer Protection Safety Commission allows 300 parts per million in the cans of paint that you and I could take off the shelf at Lowe's. And so the interesting thing is we could take that paint and I could put it on the wall and I could let it dry, and if I could just get that stuff, just the paint alone, and grind it up into a fine dust, I would have enough lead in that square foot of dried paint to contaminate something like, 140 square feet.
So shouldn't that be a federal thing?
Every time a volcano bursts, it comes out. It's part of the world that we're in, right? But the only thing I can surmise to answer that question is, now we know what uranium is, we don't keep it under the kitchen sink anymore. You know what I mean? It's like now we know what asbestos is, we don't use that for brake pads anymore, or for fire retardant, or any of that other stuff. It's just because we are an original colony city that is so old and was here along the Erie Canal, which, by the way, is important, just another fact. The reason why so much lead paint was used in this community is because lead paint on your homes back in like the 1900s through the 1950s was the equivalent of having a Mercedes parked in the driveway. Only the affluent could afford it. This paint was manufactured just in price for just the elevated households.
I have a question on that.
And
part.
so because of the wealth that this community had during the Erie Canal era, that's why you see so much of it on many of the stately homes that we have around here.
Looking at, we talk about the heat maps and you can see where lead is mostly activated. My question is if you know how that information is populated, because one of the things I'm really interested in, we have these millions of dollars going to try to remediate the issue, but when asking, well, why can't we just, find out which kids are sick from this and go to those homes, but HIPAA violations
Well, the
prohibit
health
that.
department does do that.
Okay, so that is
But
what's
it's treated as protected health information. It's a
Right.
disease status. So just like we can't find out where people who are HIV positive live in the community on some available list, you can't do that.
But what is the best way then to target that? Just go off of the maps and hope that you're capturing the most infected homes?
I will admit, it's a bit of a bear. So if you look at census tract, or if you look at like build date information, that gets challenging. I think something like 93% of the city's housing stock was built before 1978. So a good swath of it is eligible for having had a chance for somebody to have grabbed lead paint, put in lead plumbing, lead solder, lead service line.
Safe bet.
Right, so there are all those issues there. But we talk about lead dust and lead paint because the CDC and the health departments and everybody have so many years of experience. I mean, we've been using and manufacturing and dealing with lead poisoning since the 1918s. Alice Hamilton compiled a report that 1 of every 5 emergency room hospital visits were from painters who had experienced lead poisoning. But we put it on everything, and it's underneath everything. Like, one of the good things I will say, like when we get visits out here, is there's an impression of like, we are impressed with how many houses have coverings. Whether it's the shingle application, the green on the top and the gray on the bottom, whether it's the aluminum of the 60s, whether it was the asbestos tiles, or even the vinyl that we're using now today, or even the false veneer coverings, the brick coverings, all that kind of stuff. Because then that's technically an abatement.
Right.
Because that's not just going to get hit by rain or by the sleet, and then the expanding and cooling of the surfaces and the substrate from the seasons changing and the temperatures changing and the paint peeling off. There's your abatement. But the problem is getting smaller and condensed. Everybody is like relevant to where their poisoning levels are. It's just we want to keep bringing it down because the rest of the country continues to move further and further away from that. But because we're so old, we are kind of like the anchors from moving away from that era of lead poisoning. But it's not just us. Again, it's Buffalo, it's Rochester, it's Syracuse. We are definitely all in this together. And we have, a great opportunity between the resources coming down from the state, the fact that we now have 2 existing models to the west of us to look to for guidance. And I know I've spoken to officials, elected officials, department heads, all of them willing and happy to help. You know, when Cleveland put together their whole program, the Cleveland Clinic or General Hospital, they paid for a bus, they got everybody on it, they drove to Rochester, met all the officials, talked through, how did you go through it, what was the growing pains, how did the codes handle it, what was the referral system, what kind of resources did you pull in and stuff like that. The neat thing is that many of that braided funding and assistance on solution, either through education and helping people realize that if you have lead, it doesn't always mean the whole house has lead. It could just be a couple of windows. It might just be like an old door that you like that unfortunately has a bunch of lead on it. Easy peasy, take it out, get it out of the house, throw it by the curb. It's just residential waste, it's not a toxic hazard. But I mean, if you have an old chipping and peeling paint door inside of your house and it was built like in 1950 and you think it's good for a headboard, no, you look cool on those home channels, but it's not really.
Thank you.
But I got a question then. Just for the general public that's listening too. Let's say you move into a two-family house right now and you have children. One of the things that you said sort of has me a little confused on the mitigation end of it. If you paint and you're sealing all the rooms up where you're painting, from what you're saying, that's not really taking care of it. So what's a concerned parent do when he goes into a two-family house and he vacuums his windows and he paints? What else can he do once he's inside that house?
Councilman Lomedico, thank you very much for that question. So in small instances of deterioration, it is rather simple. So in other words, if you maintain as it happens, right? You know, if I were to be carrying like a dresser through a painted doorway and I scrape, you know, both sides of the door frame or something like that, that on its own is not going to create a massive lead hazard, you know, dust bomb inside my house, provided that I quickly grab some wet paper towels, pick up the paint chips, throw them out, and wet wipe that surface area. And as soon as I can get it up to the top of my honey-do list, I'm going to touch it up with some paint.
Right. But what the part John, you sort of confused me a little, is that you're saying, okay, we're going to go in there with the special paint, we're going to paint it, we're going to put the tape on it and rip it off, and you got lead paint. So even if, it sounds like even after you paint it, you're still getting lead paint into the atmosphere of the particular room that you're in.
Well, again, the volume of it, because it's also a parts per million issue.
Right.
So there's like a chronic exposure factor, right? If it's in the environment, if this part, and that's the other thing too, is like, you know, the soil can be more hazardous in the older inner city parts because of the fact that leaded gasoline was used up through like 1986, or no, it was phased out in like 1970. And you know, but it was done gradually. But the older cars used to also, if you remember, the exhaust all used to point out to the side, to the curb, didn't shoot out the back bumper. And so if you were just sitting there idling, talking to somebody sitting on their porch, and your car was running, it was just pumping lead exhaust out of the soil right there. So again, all these factors, you know, add together. And it's not to say that that doesn't do it. It does work. You know, those super old Victorian homes that look just like the ones we have in this area, but go for like $1.5 million if you're an hour drive into Connecticut from New York City, they had the same exact amount of lead that we do. It's just those homes have been maintained because they got this. We're just trying to deal with, again, there's so many forces that we can't control, right? Again, I sincerely believe that, you know, there is a great ascension happening along, not only here, but along the Erie Canal. You know, and as somebody who's trying to hire people for positions that I have open from contracts with my startup, I'm seeing people coming into the area. He's a transplant into the area. I got people applying, wanting to move back into the area from Florida and stuff like that. So the people are coming too. There's that buzz, you've got new jobs, all that other stuff. Micron's coming to town. You're going to see growth in building permits that you haven't, and that will help. Just like tilling soil that's leaded with fresh soil will dilute it and lower the parts per million, the more housing units we can bring online, the more it'll dilute that. And then through the war of attrition and everything else, some stuff will go. You know, but we also have great opportunities. You know, like Steve worked with HCR to get the project down on the corner of Broad Street there in Mohawk, right? Housing development that they're putting in down there. Same thing. Once we get those, you know, and that's where we can bring in resources and create a whole bunch of units so that we can try to relieve some of the pressure.
But that's goes back to another thing, $100 million on an apartment complex when we could be remediating prior homes that had lead poisoning in them. So that's my kind of issue with that whole thing. We're building more and not taking the care of the problems that we have.
But you have such a house, okay, so Councilwoman, all we're trying to let you know is there's a mandate coming. There are other cities who have done pre-rental inspections. Again, what I was just going to point out is that you have a leg up in many regards because of the fact that per that same legislative meeting that you had provided me when I came to the public comment, as interesting as the vote on the ARPA deal for the water lines was, I found more interesting that same night there was a proposal that had been passed that requires the codes department have somebody on staff that is trained for dealing with lead hazards on the interior of a unit. And so we're trying to find out who that is, and if there's somebody that's not been there yet, we are ready to get them certified, we are ready to pay for it, and I will either take funds from my NYSERDA program, or we will try to get the GHHI program to do it, or I'll go straight to the community foundation and say, here, give me $500 and I need that person certified. We're just trying to come in here and help you build capacity. We are trying to help you come in here.
Do you know anything about that?
Do I know anything about? No. I mean, for us, Gene is certified in urban renewal. Nobody in codes is certified. We talked about getting certification. It's equipment. There were legal concerns with it. I don't know if I should talk about that in executive session or in public or just on a one-on-one with you. But we have somebody certified in urban renewal.
Are there rules and regulations to dispose of this after you take it out?
Are there rules about disposing of it?
Yeah, regulations, cost.
Oh, yeah, I tried to allude to it earlier, Councilman. There is no added cost for doing home renovations and putting it into a blue bag and taking it out to the curb or bringing it directly up to the transfer station. The EPA has decided that a person has to generate 20 tons of toxic waste to be considered a polluter. Otherwise, you're just a contractor or you're just a DIYer, do it
We're
yourself.
not concerned about that dust.
Huh?
We're not concerned about that dust. It just goes.
If the authority wants to, mash it all up inside of there, OSHA will be mandating that. And they have been doing it for years, because every time somebody does a gut rehab and drops it off up there, they're breathing it in. And that's not something that we're here talking about. But that's just to answer your direct question, there's no extra cost
It's not
to
like
take.
asbestos.
No. And actually, I don't know if I should say this. The Department of Labor allows for the removal of asbestos in your own home. You do not need to be regulated for that. However, if you get pulled over by somebody from the Department of Labor on the way to the transfer station and you don't have paperwork saying you can take it there, they can hit you up for that. But, so again, the reason why I share that with you is because that's my compelling nature. If you ask me a question, I'm just going to try to give you the answer that I can.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
not trying to lean anybody any way or the other. And then to get back to Councilwoman's original question, the reason why you guys actually have a system in place that is the envy of many cities. Derek Crossman put it together. It's a touch point unit where you can look up a property parcel now, and you can see all the things that are happening there, whether it's like a fire department issue or a tax issue. Am I correct on that, Brian? Yeah. So like that type of system there, plus you already have your fire registry system on there. Remember, we all had to deal with creating the 1203 legislation after the James Street fire to fill in that gap, because the 1203 legislation passed by the Assembly in New York didn't call for the inspection for fire safety for units that were 4 or less than 4.
That was
So thankfully, the city responded to that gap in legislation, and I'm just trying to provide you an example of how we're trying to inform you on this kind of a process. But because you have that registry system in place, you guys have legs up. You're already, it's just weird. It's almost like your second and third leg are ahead of the other teams. You just got to get the first one off the starting line. So I don't want you to go into these deliberations thinking that you're starting from ground zero, because you also have the Lead-Free Healthy Homes Mohawk Valley Coalition, which has helped secure those funds to which Councilwoman had alluded to. You're also members and signed to the compact of the Green and Healthy Home Initiative, along with the county health department, Mohawk Valley Community Action Agency, the Home Ownership Center, Cornell Cooperative Extension. We are definitely in this together. If you have questions about what other communities have done, if you really want to go into the deep dive in the weeds of the rabbit hole of that stuff, you can, but just be prepared for hopefully a Steve Darman-like approach to understanding this topic, just as he tries to allude to homelessness and the impact on the community and everything else like that as well too. I was born here. I'm happy to still come down here and do all that other stuff. I know some of you personally. I know some of you through other contacts and stuff like that. Again, Cornell Cooperative Extension of Oneida County is a partner for you. The coalition is a partner for you. The only other thing I would just allude to is that Mr. Sharfar is here, who I'm sure you could all pick up from his presentation. Very sharp, very smart, is going to be working on a United States EPA Community Impact Grant. And those types of grants are places where you could say, hey, we would love to take $100,000 so we can hire CNS Engineering to do the seeker requirements for something like that.
We have to get moving on to the rest of the legislation tonight, but can I ask, what's a great way to contact you afterwards and find out more?
Pardon?
What's a way to contact you afterwards and find out more?
I'm handing out my card to all the council people
Thank
and
you
the
so
council
much.
president.
Thank you so much. It was incredibly helpful.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, we got a lot on their agenda, and
Yeah, because we got a 7 o'clock council meeting.
So-
Supposed to start at 7 o'clock.
so let's get going on, let's get going on proposition number 1. Katie, do you have a problem with the street signs for honoring?
No, we're all set. If people want to do full councils, just to honor Father Sesta for his.
Yep. Well, we have a meeting.
Let's pay attention here.
Okay, we're gonna go full council on this?
Full
Yeah,
council.
Katie, I'm fine with that.
Thank you, Joe.
The second one is the permit of commission appointment. I don't have a problem. Anybody else got a problem with this?
I'm good with it.
What's this, what is this for?
This is,
Go right on the floor here.
What is this for?
this is for the towing.
Yeah, here's the only problem I have with that, and actually, I think a lot of Frank Miola, but when we did this legislation, you shouldn't have somebody involved in this business. Number one, Frank's not only a body shop person, he's an insurance adjuster. So I will not be supporting that as much as I support Frank. I just don't think that's the right thing to do. That's not what the plan was when we did that. We wanted somebody who knows the business and is not involved in the business anymore. For example, I brought up Fred LaBella, who's had a business for 30 years. He no longer is in business. And that's just my thought on it. So you guys do whatever you want to do, but that's just how I feel on that.
I did. Sir, Mr. Majority Leader, I'm ready. This is an ordinance, excuse me, it's not an ordinance. We can vote on this right now and pull it and vote on it right now if we'd like to.
At the meeting, yeah.
It's a 7 o'clock meeting.
Right.
Yep.
So I'm ready to vote on it as soon as we start the meeting.
But shouldn't we put?
Yeah, I agree. Yes, we should put out to give other people a chance to get on this committee.
I think he's the most qualified, that's why.
Well, he is qualified, no.
Nobody's saying he's not qualified, but he owns a business in towing, and he's an insurance adjuster.
Well, first of all, he doesn't own a business in towing.
He owns a
And
body
he's
shop.
been around the business forever.
Okay.
And if there's anybody that understands how the business runs and who helped draft the actual law itself, I think he is the most responsible person
Okay,
to be
but,
able to do that.
Councilman, let me ask you this question. Any other time we have committees, this type stuff, we put it out and do an interview process. So that's, I don't know why we would change it any different now. So that's just my thought. You want to bring it to the floor, bring it to the floor. That's fine.
All right, John, thank you very much. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Number 3.
Number
Well,
3?
yes, Bob, I do have one question. So you other 8 people, you guys don't agree on that? You all sit there and say that's the way to do it, even though we've been doing stuff one way forever? We're just gonna say, okay, that's the way we're gonna do it? Nobody's got a problem with the comments I just made? Everybody's good with it?
I agree with you.
Uh-huh.
I think you should just put it out there, make it fair, affirmative.
I'm
across
personally,
the
I'm
board.
good with Frank to do it, and I get your point on principle with it, but
Okay, so yours are all good with it then. Okay, no problem.
Okay, what was I saying? Number 3, we're talking about the authorization to sell beer and wine at the St. Anthony and St. Agnes on Friday the 7th from 5 to 10, Saturday the 8th, 5 to 10. Anybody have a problem with that?
nope.
So,
All set.
The next one is a resolution in support of submission of an application for staff funding under the Restore New York Communities Initiative Municipal Grant Program.
Yep.
Yep, I'm good with this.
No questions?
Nope.
The next one is the resolution approving municipal agreement with the county for a law enforcement coordinator for the Child Advocacy Center.
And this was, the dates were all set with us, so 2023 to 2024?
Yes.
Right, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna.
Any questions?
Deputy Chief, anything on that?
Could you,
The CAC.
it's renewal of contract? Yeah, it's something we do every year. It's paid for by the county, benefits everybody involved.
Aye, aye.
Chief, I had Deputy Chief, I had one question on that. So I'm just trying to figure out, they pay his salary, correct?
Correct.
So when they did the actual budget, do you put his salary in on the budget from the, make that part of the actual budget itself, you take it out, or is this, or did you leave him out when you created the budget because you knew you were going to get that money in for that?
So he would be included in the budget salary lines, but then on the, so I think it's like grants and other, I don't know the term you use. Like
Because they
payback-
pay him
payback.
his full amount, correct?
They claim his full amount, but then they record the payback.
Right. So how,
We have, like, with
So you
domestic
get-
violence, we have YWCA, they pay us back for an officer.
right.
We have other officers that are
but-
paid for.
So do you give the money back after they pay it to you?
It goes to the city.
So what, do you know what the city does with it, the extra amount that they're getting for that police officer, what they do with it?
It's part of the revenue.
Goes to the general fund.
It goes into the general fund. So when we do next year's budget, if we actually, so we're actually having one extra pay on a police officer in the
No, it's
budget.
it's reimbursed.
It's factored
Who do you
in.
reimburse?
It's accounted for in the budget. So it shows, in the salary line, it shows the salary,
Right.
but in the reimbursements, it's shown.
You
in the
have-
What are you reimbursing it to?
You have to have a revenue line. The revenue line accounts for it,
Well,
and the
I'm
total
just
salary
wondering.
line.
I'm just
Chick, but this is
wondering
like
how
your
it works.
7th, 9th, 8th, 9th, 10th budget. You gotta understand it by now.
So where's the money go after you receive the money? It goes into the general fund? No, it doesn't. Well, that's right. But you've already put that money in from the,
Right.
from the budget. You've you've already included that money in the budget, and then you're getting paid again from the county on that, for that particular officer. So I'm just wondering where the extra money goes for that particular police officer. Where's it go?
You have a salary line.
That's factored into the budget in the beginning, so
Right.
it's shown in the expenditure.
Right.
It's also shown in the revenue.
Right, so-
So in the overall budget, there's no,
It balances out.
it balances out.
How's it shown in the expenditure if you're getting
We're
paid
paying-
twice for it,
No,
right?
We're paying the salary,
Correct.
and we're acknowledging that we're gonna be getting money in for the amount that we're paying for that salary. It's a wash.
So you don't include that, so you don't actually include that money when you include that officer in the actual budget, the initial budget?
No, they show it as a salary, and they show that we're gonna be getting money coming in from this grant.
That's how we account for it.
Okay, I'll be looking for it. All right, very good, thank you.
Thank you. Proposition number 6, it's a resolution approving intermunicipal agreement with the county for the DWI program. It runs until the end of October of this year.
Chief, are we reimbursed from the county
Or
DWI
actually, last
program?
year. Are them numbers
Can you
right?
show me where it is in the revenue line? No, I'm just
And these numbers are just a.
Why are you being a butt?
Are them numbers right, October 23?
The dates are correct. It just happens to be that the contract has not been signed yet. But these are standard renewal, for the most part, contracts that we do it.
Okay. Any questions?
No.
The next one's a resolution approving the intermunicipal agreement with the county for the DWI program from January 1st to the end of December, January.
Yep, and I guess I should just clarify, there are two slightly different programs. One of them is specifically for training, the other one is actually implementing and exercising stops, so. But they're both part of the Stop DWI overarching.
Okay, very good, thank you. The next one is proposition number 8, authorizing sale of beer and wine to the American Legion, Post 229, on Saturday, August 17th, from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m.
Yep. Yep.
The next one's calling for a public hearing tonight
Yep.
for 1014 Taylor Ave.
Sounds good.
That's Venice.
Dennis, you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Maybe, yeah.
10 in committee.
Number 10 we'll put in committee. Any questions? Number 11, Irvin. Number 11, about the Seymour Ave.
That's the one on the, yep, that one's good.
That one's good. And the next one we'll put in committee.
Yep.
Number 13 would be authorizing the sale of beer and wine to FF Max on a variety of different dates, May 26th, June 29th, July 19th, July 26th, August 6th at FX Max Brewery, 811 Edward.
Yep.
Anybody has any questions? Number 14 is the
I can speak on this too. So after the last council meeting when we passed the towing legislation, I met with a number of tow truck drivers Thursday, and we did the math of what we passed, and they are losing pretty much a drastic amount each towing, about easily $1,000 a tow. So I just want to put this back in committee to reassess the fees, and I think there's a couple things that are off. Specifically, we also passed, we told that it was supposed to be $85 a day for storage, and it's still $45 a day just for outdoor, but indoor is $85. These are pieces of it that need to be corrected if it's going to be moving forward. So, like I said, just putting it back into committee is all I'm looking to do.
It's going to committee then, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
committee.
All right.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Number
15.
15 is an authorizing sale of beer and wine to FX Max again on Boilermaker After Party on Sunday, July 14th from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. Any questions?
Nope.
Number 17. I don't have 16.
I'm stuck to your 15.
Thank you.
Oh, here it is.
Yes.
Agreement for participation in Mohawk Valley Storm Weather Coalition. Any questions on that? I'm sorry I didn't have that.
They just printed it out. It was with a memo.
Thank you.
All set?
What's that?
What was that?
I
Yeah,
got-
and then we're going to pull 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 from committee tonight.
Well, what numbers? 10,
Yep, 10, 11,
12, 13.
and 14. So
And
those are the
14.
zoning ordinances and lifting the moratorium after
and-
the,
And then we're going to pull 5 for the 1538 Miller Street. Are you good with that one? Miller Street.
Stephanie.
Yep, I'm good with it.
Stephanie. You're good with this, right?
Okay, any other legislation to be discussed?
14?
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, so the pieces that you're pulling from committee on the zoning stuff, they're going to be amendments made.
before the public hearing.
Yes, and like I said, there's one specifically relating to the map for a motion to be made to declare yourself lead agent in an unlisted action, so I just want to make sure that that's clear, but.
I'm
Okay.
good with it. Yep.
Anything else being pulled from the committee?
Well, sir.
Make a motion?
Motion to
Second.
adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rock.
I'm working on it right now. I think I can. I want to get 5 people to vote again. at the poster party.
This meeting will come to order. The city clerk will call the roll.
Aiello, Burmaster, Vitar, Carcone, Urban, Beatrice, Williamson, Classimo Testa, Lemetico, Druzzi, all present.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence for the deceased members of the Common Council. Does the chair hear a motion and a second to dispense with the reading of minutes from the previous meeting?
Second?
Yeah. I'm asking for a motion to waive the rules of order. We have some amendments.
I'd like to make a motion. The First Amendment is on ordinance number 10. The be it ordained component will read, be it ordained that section 2-29-361 entitled marijuana dispensary/retail. The ordinance as follows. The ordinance is to read as follows. That's the First Amendment. The Second Amendment is under applicability, subsection 1. After, with the provisions of this section, it needs to be added that, and all conditions and/or regulations of the license issued by New York State, by the New York State Office of Cannabis Management. The second is ordinance number 11. I'd like to make an amendment for it to read after marijuana dispensary/retail in the column supplemental regulations. Yeah, we are. There's motion. We already made the motion in a second because we're just amending them. We're not voting on them yet. The second proposed ordinance number 12.
Do we need to vote on the amendments? We do as a whole. No objections?
No objection, okay, just making sure.
So the other component was for the be it ordained, it needs to read, be it ordained that section 2-29-133, subsection B, subsection 2 is hereby added to the Code of Ordinance as follows.
Second.
The other amendment on that piece, it needs to read that the Common Council designates itself as a lead agency for the purpose of review under the Seeker Act and has declared the zoning amendment to be an unlisted action, and there are no negative impacts to the environment anticipated in the result of the seeker.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, and then the Common Council does hereby grant a negative declaration.
Second.
And then proposed ordinance number 13 needs an amendment for the ordinance to read, be it ordained that section 2-29-114 to the Code of Ordinance is hereby amended to include the following subsection.
Second.
And that was it. Thank you.
Not 14.
Nope, nothing's amended in 14. Okay. I make a motion to go back to the regular order of business.
And opposed?
Yeah, but we're not voting on them because we have to call for the committee.
To read the new pieces, see.
And Rock, those will be read on the floor because we still didn't take a vote. We didn't vote on them yet. So we can't We'll just make the motion, have the public hearing and then vote on them on the floor as read.
Sounds good. No one has signed up for the public hearing. Yep. So we're going to close that, and we're going to start our public comment period. Each person will have 3 minutes per speaker.
Isn't there a public hearing for the URA properties? Apologies.
Okay, yeah. Public hearing for the ordinance, 5 Miller Street.
Leah Street, right? Taylor Ave.
Ordinance, ordinance approving the designation of Hussein Katrovic as an eligible and qualified project sponsor pursuant to Article 15th of General Municipal Law for the purpose of the sale of 1538 Miller Street. Further be ordained that the chairman of the Utica Urban Renewal Agency is hereby authorized to take any and all steps necessary to complete this disposition of this property. Your votes, please.
Nine E's adopted.
Can I have a motion to pull ordinance number 5 out of committee? Second? Yep. Ordinance approving the designation of Hussein Kajakovic as an eligible and qualified project sponsor. Is it? No. It's 7. Where's 7?
Yeah, we were keeping that one in committee. That was so you're gonna call for a public hearing for this, and then, I mean, you can ask them if somebody wants to go back.
Yep.
Just calling for a public hearing on proposed ordinance number 7.
Mr. President, before you do that, I'd like to pull it out of committee. Okay.
Yeah, motion.
And we have people here to speak on that property. That's why I'm asking about the public hearing for the URA one. That's for the Black Acres, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So after the public hearing?
Yeah, you vote.
Okay.
Same thing as
You vote on it?
Yeah, he wants to.
After the public hearing.
The public hearing was already called for tonight.
Call the public hearing on that. But you don't want to vote on that?
Wasn't it already called for tonight, though?
Yeah, we're gonna vote on it now.
They're already called the public hearing.
Right.
Now this is the sale of the properties.
Right,
Yeah,
So did you want to vote
Yeah,
on
we're
the
gonna
sale
vote
of that one?
yes.
yeah.
You did? Okay, so your votes. Nine A's adopted.
Public comment period. James Paul. James, Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244 public comment period. Are you in agreement?
Yes.
Please state your name.
James Paul.
Thank you, James.
So 9A, we're good. We're up. So that just passed, correct? 9A was Black Acres. So I just want to say thank you. That's all I have.
Oh, thank you, James.
You might have had some more words.
Carol Gable. Hi, Carol. Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244. Are you in agreement?
Yes.
Please state your name.
Carol Gable.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you. I was here in March, so I won't reintroduce myself, but I am the Environmental Justice Committee Chair for the Oneida County Utica chapter of the NAACP, and there were many members of our committee, the NAACP, and other partners concerned about lead poisoning back in March. We were here, and we're again here tonight to hear the presentation that was given earlier. We're all very concerned about the slow progress of reducing lead levels in our children in Utica. We're so grateful to the presentation that was given tonight and for the Extension Center's work on lead. We're calling for Utica to pass lead legislation similar to that adopted by the other cities that Dan and John mentioned, Rochester, Buffalo, Syracuse. We really would like to see a legislation passed that requires testing before a certificate of occupancy can be issued. I shared printed copies of the legislation for the other cities with a couple of you at that March meeting, and I emailed them to the mayor's office and the chief of staff. Passing such ordinances won't solve our lead problem alone. We understand that. Staffing is going to be required to enforce compliance, but we think it's really important to move forward on this, and we strongly believe that taking action will reduce lead poisoning in Utica, helping children already dealing with adverse conditions to reduce a significant amount of resources our schools and city must allocate for special education, counseling, youth violence, and more. Please take action available to you that will help our children in this community. Thank you very much for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Carol. Miranda Hoffelt. Miranda, the Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244. Are you in agreement?
Yes.
Please state your name.
Miranda Hofelt.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. And I, too, am a member of the Subcommittee on Environmental Justice with the NAACP. And I live in the 3150 area code. I am in support of a lead abatement ordinance for two reasons. First, such an ordinance would really decrease the risk of childhood lead exposure, and that supports Mayor Galimi's priority on reducing teen violence and increasing public safety. And the second reason that I support it, it has to do with the debilitating effects of lead exposure in adults as well as in children. In regards to how the lead abatement ordinance would support Mayor Galimi's work, I first learned about the link between childhood lead exposure and teen violence at the mayor's gun summit in January of 2020, which, Marcus, I think you helped to organize. And it was a wonderful summit filled with a mix of speakers, politicians, a number of law enforcement officers, and also local activists. But the most illuminating speaker for me was Dr. Andy Lopez Williams, who's the president and CEO of the ADHD and Autism Center in New Hartford. And he gave a presentation on the irrevocable developmental impact of lead exposure on a child's brain. And he actually really used a series of scientific studies to directly link lead exposure to teen violence. And he showed us the various parts of the brain that are affected, and also how the different things, developmental issues that can be raised with lead exposure. So in demonstrating the cognitive, emotional regulation and behavioral issues that are caused by lead exposure during childhood, he also said, by extension, children who have had lead exposure, when they become teenagers and adults, are more quick to anger and violence. And I think that really supports, again, what Dan was talking about, and this is a local doctor. So because of this link that Dr. Lopez outlined between lead exposure and teen violence, I really do think that a lead ordinance, some type of lead ordinance legislation would be helpful to decrease childhood lead exposure and support Mayor Galimi's priority of reducing youth violence. The second reason that I'm really in support of such an
I think
amendment.
you're going to have to finish up, please.
Okay, I'm going to go quick. I actually bought a house in Chicago in the late 90s and got renovated every single room, not realizing that I was exposing myself to lead. I subsequently was diagnosed with lupus and also with Sjogren's disease, both of which are caused in part by elevated lead levels. Moreover, when I moved to Utica, I moved into a wonderful 2-flat in South Utica, which I love. But when I opened the windows in the spring, I discovered all these paint chips and deteriorating paint. And exposure to any kind of lead causes my diseases to flare up. And I have a landlord who's like, well, it's really expensive to do all this stuff. So I'm concerned that, my point being here, that both children and adults can be detrimentally affected by lead poisoning. And lead is an equal opportunity destroyer, basically. So I hope that you'll think about that in my personal comments. Thank you for giving me extra time.
Thank you, Carol. Christina Sherbert? Hi, Christina. Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244. Are you in agreement?
Yes, sir.
Please state your name.
Christina Schubert.
Thank you,
Not
Christina.
the ice cream, although that would be cool. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you all again. I spoke to you on at the March meeting, and shared my personal story. Councilman Lemetico mentioned concerned parents. I am one of them. At the prior meeting in March, I shared that the lead levels around my house in the soil are only 1 part per million below the 400 part per million threshold. That is the highest, most hazardous level of lead, that you can have. So extremely, extremely hazardous. I have a young child who just turned 6, and I still live in fear knowing that, literally my house and my soil are poisonous. Fortunately, he's okay, but, as a parent, you want to avoid risks for your child, obviously. So that's something I can't really do much about. I've tried to do some abatement with the soil, but it's there. To address some of Councilwoman Testa's questions earlier, my house, the previous owners had done a lot of work on it. It has aluminum siding. I was recently repainted, and still, it was built in the 20s. There's been decades of lead paint falling off of my house and into the soil. You can do as much as you want to the house, and you can reduce the lead exposure inside the house, as the experts from Cornell explained, but it's still in the soil. It's still here. It's a huge, huge issue. The dust, the residue of lead are the effects of that. It's going to be around with us forever. It doesn't degrade. It's a chemical element. It's a metal. I know many of you also have young children in your families or are educators of young children yourself. I have also taught in local districts, and I know firsthand the high rates of disabilities, the high rates of behavior issues that we see in our schools, unfortunately. I know the causes of these issues are multifactorial, but lead is one of those causes. Lead poisoning, as our experts have shown, there's a scientific consensus showing a link between lead poisoning and negative outcomes for children and adults. In fact, then I just confirmed this with some of my colleagues, but the number of children in Utica who have been tested, which not everybody has been tested, have been tested and are officially lead poisoned would fill one of Utica's elementary schools. Let's just let that sit in for a minute. Imagine one of our elementary schools, maybe Albany, Conkling, all the children in there have lead poisoning. Imagine what that does to their developing brains. Imagine what that does to their futures.
Finish up, please.
Okay. So Syracuse and Rochester have taken proactive action to see dramatic benefits in their cities. They're seeing the results already. They're no longer on the list that John mentioned. As John said, we have the resources. We have the collaborative partners with these other cities. We have the momentum to do this. We're ready to hit the ground running. So, please pass this ordinance to address the devastating and pervasive crisis of lead poisoning in our children. The most important reason, obviously, is that it would be a huge boon for our community, for health, education, crime. In addition, this ordinance would be a wonderful accomplishment and legacy for this council and this administration who have committed themselves to addressing public safety and youth issues. Okay, I want to make a little joke. This is a no-brainer. I know lead is a neurotoxin, but this is a no-brainer here, folks. Thank you so much for taking action on this for our children and for Utica's future.
Stefan Rubitsky. Hi, Stefan. Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244.
Correct.
Are you in agreement?
Yes.
Please state your name.
Stefan Rubitsky.
Thank you, Stefan.
You're welcome. Now, I was at last week's meeting at Munson for the reuse of St. Elizabeth's campus up on Genesee Street in South Utica. Now, there are 4 ideas to build something there. I think that you guys and the mayor and the firm need to all work together to put whatever is appropriate at that site. Now, I don't think we need what we have on Sunset Ave in South Utica, the Kelberman Center Apartments. We don't need another one of those at the St. Elizabeth site. We need something that is that fits within the community and that fits in that neighborhood. And I'd like, this is my opinion, I'd like maybe like an eatery there or a coffee shop, because you either have to go to New Hartford or Price Chopper area for coffee or a eatery. And I think we need to put something there that's appropriate with that area and with the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Heather Wazalewski. Hi, Heather.
Hi.
Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244. Are you in agreement?
Yes. I'm actually not saying anything tonight because it was for Black Acres I was going to speak for, so I'm good. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Heather. Ron Vincent. Ron, the Common Council provided you a copy of Section 3244. Are you in agreement?
Yes, I am.
Please state your name.
My name is Ron Vincent.
Thank you.
A citizen of Utica, New York. 2 weeks ago, I was at the meeting, and there was a lot of talk about the flag issue that's been passed by the Common Council. I just wanted to voice my opinion on it. I'm not discriminating against anybody in any way, but I've got a solution. I agree with our mayor's decision. We have 2 flagpoles standing outside, one to the right, one to the left of the stage out there. One, there's an American flag like we have here. The other one, for the last 12 years or so, has been changed on a monthly basis, sometimes a weekly basis. A lot of photoshopping going on out there. And I don't disrespect anybody else's flag, but I'll tell you what, that American flag I respect with my heart. My suggestion to the city of Utica and to the mayor himself is to take and cut one of those flagpoles down, so we only have one flagpole. And I meant one flagpole will have one and only one flag, our American flag. That's the heart of this country. Veterans, citizens of this whole country. This is our flag. We will put one up. I hope someday it'll even be a bigger one. But when it comes to all these other flags, I don't care if I ever see another flag up there for the rest of my life, except that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. There's no guest speaker. Communication from the mayor. Okay. Report of city officers. City engineer Nicholas Ryan Becker.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Deputy Chief Noonan, UPD.
Mr. President, yesterday we had our annual awards ceremony for the Utica Police Department. Just wanted to thank the officers for all their hard work that they do on a daily basis, and it was really eye-opening to see the number of guns that were taken off the street in the past year. So I just wanted to just reiterate our thanks to them and the work they do on a daily basis.
Thank you, Chief. Stephanie DeGiorgio, Corporation Counsel.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Brian Thomas, Urban Renewal.
Nothing to report.
Chief Gentile.
I'd just like to reiterate some of the people that spoke today and our guest speaker at the previous meeting that combating lead is a priority of the administration, something that we're continuing to work on, and something we'll be willing to work with the council on moving forward.
Thank you, Chief. Deputy Commissioner of Parks, Mark Sokolowski.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Commissioner of Codes, Marcus Phillips.
Fortunately, I gotta talk today. But I got 3 issues. I'll be quick. Just wanted to update the council on things I've been getting questions about, as well as update the public because got a lot of questions about. One is Michael Walsh still doesn't have hot water. Haven't had hot water for a while. We continue to be disappointed by the maintenance in Michael Walsh Apartments. They supposedly hired a new property maintenance company, but today the codes department went there and stopped them from working on the issue because they had unlicensed people working in there, and we're not going to allow a shoddy repair. So we hope to get it fixed by Friday. I mean, that's the update. We think it'll be fixed by Friday, but our hearts are with the people, but it'll be even worse if a mechanical appliance like that isn't installed properly or isn't the right appliance for that building. So that's one. Bowers Development Properties, we get a lot of questions on those, still in court. There's a list of things they're supposed to comply with by July 1st, so we think we might get some progress there. And the big pile of rubble on Varick Street is supposed to be gone by the end of the month. That's it.
Thank you. Fire Chief Angersell.
Just like to say, next Friday, May 24th, is the Police and Firefighters Annual Memorial Service at 11:30 at the Parkway Rec Center. We'll be honoring former members of both the police and fire department that have died in the past several years.
Chief, when is it again?
It's next Friday, the 24th, I believe, and it starts at 11:30. It'll be inside the Parkway Rec Center. That's it.
Thank you, Fire Chief. Petitions, responses, and appeals. First Ward, Council Member Katie Ayala.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm all set tonight.
Thank you. Second Ward, Council Member Bob Burmaster.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not to the pass tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Third Ward, Council Member Joe Bitar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nothing for me tonight.
Thank you. Fourth Ward, Council Member Frank Carcone.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Fifth Ward, Council Member Venice Irvin.
Well, I got something to talk about. The Corner Hill neighborhood meeting is the second Tuesday of each month. Johnson Park Center has been completed. They're actually putting more furniture into it today. They had, they were picking names or numbers yesterday for the residents that are going to be going into it. So that happened yesterday. The lottery happened yesterday for those apartments. The Ovalston is already taking applications, and they'll be having their lottery soon. Yesterday, was it today? Today I went to O'Reilly's Auto Parts. for the ribbon cutting. And there wasn't many people there, but he was happy that somebody from the city was there. And I let him know that Councilman Bitar was going to come, but he had something else to do, so I gave him, let him know that. The Impact Center, people were asking about that on James Street and West Street. That's moving along. We're seeing some progress with that, with the destruction of the Leisure Time Center. So that's making a lot of people happy. That's happening. Let's see what else. Okay, I think that's it for me tonight. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. 6th Ward Council Member Joe Beatrice.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to reiterate on Deputy Chief Noonan's comments about the award ceremony. I was lucky enough to attend it yesterday, and I was at awe by what these guys do over and over, the amount of guns and the what they put their lives on the line every day, and it was an honor to be there for that. So I was very glad I can do that. Next Monday, the 20th, we'll be having a North Utica meeting a week early because of Memorial Day. So it'll be on the 20th at 6:30. Myself and Mr. Gentile will be there at 5:30 to meet, for anything, if anybody's got any issues that they want to talk on one-on-one. I want to personally go out of my way to thank the Parks Department for taking care of a major issue in my area. That was a very terrible property, and they helped out a lot. I want to remind everybody that this week, your regular pickup date is the last week for green waste to be picked up. So whatever night that they usually come, try to make sure you're getting out there and be a little patient if they are a little bit behind because of the way the weather's been. And on that note, please also remember that our city lawns and properties, very difficult to have this grass cut and all this stuff done when it rains every day. And we have people working, these guys work very hard. I know they work Saturdays sometimes, so just be a little bit patient with it, and they're doing the best they can. Thank you so much, and have a great night.
Thank you. Council Member at Large, Mark Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to, my father-in-law right now is having open heart surgery up in St. Joe's. He's probably still on the table right now. He got moved from Wynn last week, and so he's having it today, and I'm here because I'm doing my duty. That's all I could say. Thank you.
Thank you, Master Chief. Council Member at Large, Samantha Calissimo Testa.
I've got nothing this evening. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you sure?
I mean, I always got something to say, but we're about 10 minutes behind, so we got to keep it moving.
Council Member at Large, Jack Leminical.
First of all, my thoughts and prayers for Mark's father-in-law. I hope everything turns out all right. He's a good man. Second is on this lead abatement. I was a parole officer for close to 30 years, and I witnessed on a daily basis, some of my people would come in, and a number of them did have lead poisoning, and they suffered. They had brain damage, and it really took a toll on themselves and their families. So I'm hoping the mayor does put together some plan on how we could attack this and get some good lead abatement into the city here. And lastly, I spent a number of years in the military, and my father was in the military, and my son was in the military, and I fought with Italian Americans, Polish Americans. I fought with together hand in hand with people of the gay community. I fought people from all different countries that came to America and settled in, and I've worked with people all over the world. And I don't think it's a problem that people are proud where their ancestors came from. And I don't see it's an issue. We give them one day to celebrate their heritage. So I'm hoping that maybe the mayor changes his mind. If he doesn't change his mind about putting up certain flags, I'd be more than happy to put up the flag for them. That's it, thank you.
Thank you. Motion to introduce proposed resolution number 1.
Make a motion?
Second.
Second.
This is for full council, please. Yes, thank you.
Street sign honoring Father Jim Sessa, whereas Father Jim Sessa has dedicated 50 years of his life to the priesthood, serving the community of St. Mary of Mount Carmel Blessed Sacrament Parish with unwavering devotion and compassion, whereas Father Jim Sessa, born and raised in Syracuse, New York, began his journey in ministry after receiving a seminary education at Wadhams Hall Seminary College in Ogdensburg and St. Bernard School of Theology and Ministry in Rochester, New York, whereas Father Sessa was ordained on May 18, 1974, marking the beginning of a remarkable career in priesthood, during which he ministered in congregations across New York State, whereas throughout his tenure as a priest, Father Sessa has exemplified the highest standards of personal and professional integrity, providing spiritual guidance and enlightenment and wisdom to all entrusted to his care, whereas Father Jim Sessa's service to the community has extended beyond the spiritual realm, as he has tirelessly worked to meet the corporal needs of parishioners and the broader community. Whereas Jim Sessa's selfless dedication to this ministry has left an indelible mark on the hearts of those he has touched, enriching the lives of countless individuals and families. Whereas Jim Sessa's selfless dedication to his ministry, now be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Utica does hereby authorize and endorse the addition of Father Jim Sessa Way to Mount Carmel Lane in honor of Father Sessa's 50th anniversary of ordination. Be it further resolved that this dedication serves as a lasting tribute to Father Sessa's 50 years exemplary service, unwavering faith, and profound impact on the community of St. Mary of Mount Carmel Blessed Sacrament Parish. Can I have your votes?
9 yeas adopted.
Motion to introduce proposed resolution number 2.
Motion?
Second. Permit Commission appointment. Be it resolved that pursuant to Section 228-6 of the City of Utica Code of Ordinances, the Common Council does hereby designate to be its representative the following named person to the Permit Commission for a period of 2 years, commencing from May 15, 2024 to December 31st, 2025. Frank Miola, 33 Knob Road, Utica, New York, 13501. Can I have your votes, please?
Mr. President, just for the record, anytime we appoint somebody to a board, we actually take the time to interview candidates. I think this one in particular, knowing that the person being appointed does business with the tow rotation companies, does become a conflict of interest. And without going through that due process, I think that's a disservice to other people that could have possibly had that appointment to this board as well. So therefore, I will be voting no.
I'd like to add to that. We have 5 votes that I know it's going to pass this amendment. All right, first of all. I don't understand why we have to bring anybody in if we already know that we have the votes to actually bring that person in. I don't want to waste anybody's time. So I'm willing to make my vote yes for Mr. Miola. Thank you.
Did you make that decision in your kitchen?
In my garage.
Now, point of order. Let's go. Votes, please.
Five yeas defeated.
Motion to introduce proposed resolution number 3. Authorizing sale of beer and wine to St. Anthony and St. Agnes Church, whereas the sale of alcoholic beverages and possession of an open container containing alcoholic beverages is prohibited on Utica City streets, sidewalks, playgrounds, parks, and the right-of-way by ordinance of the Common Council, except in certain instances where permission is granted by the Common Council. Be it resolved that the permission to sell beer and wine and exemption from the provisions of Section 21543 subdivisions and regarding open containers of alcoholic beverages is granted to. Your votes, please.
on the permits, can we don't do those, I know you know that, and I, thank you.
9 yeas adopted.
Motion to introduce proposed resolution number 4.
Motion?
Second.
Second. Resolution in support of submission of application for state funding under the Restore New York Communities Initiative Municipal Grant Program. Now therefore be it resolved that the Utica County Council hereby supports and will sponsor an application. Be it further resolved that the mayor is hereby authorized to sign any and all documents related to the submissions of the grant application, as well as those required by Empire State Development Corporation for funding awards that result from this application. Your votes, please.
Nine yeas adopted.
Motion to introduce proposed resolution number 5.
Motion?
A resolution approving intermunicipal agreement with the county for a law enforcement coordinator for the Child Advocacy Center, whereas the county of Oneida has the need for a more intensive coordinated approach to the investigation of child and sexual abuse and severe child abuse. Further resolved that the mayor is authorized to execute this agreement and any other documents necessary. The intents of this resolution. Your votes, please.
9 yeas adopted.
Motion to introduce proposed resolution number 6.
Motion?
Yeah, a resolution approving intermunicipal agreement with the county Stop DWI program. Whereas the County of Oneida operates the Stop DWI program, the mission of which is the county-wide reduction of alcohol-related traffic injuries and fatalities. Whereas the city of Utica wishes to promote the county Stop DWI program. Be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Utica hereby authorizes and approves acceptance of this proposed agreement and substantially in the same form. Further resolved that the mayor is authorized to execute this agreement and any other documents necessary. The intents of this resolution. Votes, please.
9 yeas adopted.
Motion to introduce proposed resolution number 7.
Motion?
Resolution approving intermunicipal agreement with the county Stop DWI program. Whereas the County of Oneida operates the Stop DWI program, the mission of which is the county-wide reduction of alcohol-related traffic injuries and fatalities. Further resolved that the mayor is authorized to execute this agreement and any other documents necessary. The intents of this resolution. Votes, please.
9 yeas adopted.
A motion to introduce proposed resolution number 8.
Motion?
Second. Okay. Authorizing sale of beer and wine to American Legion Post number 299. American Legion Post 299 annual event, Saturday, August 17th, 2024, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Utica Post number 229, 409 Herkimer Road, Utica, New York, 13502. Votes, please.
9 yeas adopted.
Are we calling for a public hearing on proposed resolution number 9?
Yep.
Yes. Make a
Yes.
motion?
Second. Calling for a public hearing on the sale of lot 1014 Taylor Avenue.
Motion?
Whereas the Utica Urban Renewal Agency is the owner of 1014 Taylor Ave, whereas the purchase of 1014 Taylor Ave has been received by the Utica Urban Renewal Agency, whereas the purchase price for this property is $250. Yep. Now, therefore, the Utica Common Council will conduct a public hearing on Wednesday, June 19th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Your votes, please.
9 yeas adopted.
Motion to commit proposed ordinance number 10.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Calling for a public hearing on the sale of lots 318.74-225 and 318.74-233 Seymour Ave, 318.74-226, 318.74-227, and 334 Leah Street. Whereas the Utica Urban Renewal Agency is authorized to sell the development parcels in said urban renewal area to prospective developers pursuant to the requirements set forth in Article 15, Section 507 of the General Municipal Laws of the State of New York. Now therefore be resolved that the Utica County Council will conduct a public hearing on Wednesday, June 19, 2024 at 7 p.m. Votes, please.
Nine yeas adopted.
Motion to put on proposed ordinance number 12 in committee. Second.
Second, please.
Second.
Second.
Committee. A motion to introduce proposed resolution number 13.
Motion.
Second.
Thank you.
Authorizing sale of beer and wine to FX Matt Brewery. FX Matt Brewery Summer Concert Series, Sunday, May 26, 2024, 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. Saturday, June 29, 2024, Friday, July 19, 2024, Friday, July 26, 2024, Tuesday, August 6, 2024, FX Mac Brewery, 811 Edward Street, Utica, New York, 13502. Votes, please.
Nine yeas adopted.
Yeah, they have an event on Thursday.
They're just summer, they're just.
Those are the summer concerts, and they have them on June 9th. They have them on Thursdays.
And
I-
Saturdays and Sundays,
Yeah.
that's their schedule.
There is no good old summertime no more.
4th of July is Wednesday,
I'm not sure.
so next Wednesday, the 11th. Correct? I'm not here.
August is Tuesday. 26th is Friday, 19th is
Friday,
Friday.
July 19th,
June
Friday,
29th.
July 26th, Tuesday.
Yeah, these are the right dates.
All right, let's move on.
Motion to put proposed ordinance number 14 in committee.
July and August. I'll make a motion to commit.
Second. Commit.
June 19th? Oh, that was a great question.
A motion to introduce proposed resolution number 15. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Authorizing sale of beer and wine to FX Matt Brewery. FX Matt Brewery Boilermaker After Party Saturday, July 14th, 2024, 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. FX Matt Brewery, 811 Edward Street, Utica, New York, 13502. Votes?
You're good?
Thank you.
Nine yeas adopted.
Motion to introduce proposed resolution number 16.
Motion?
Second, a resolution approving agreement for participation in Mohawk Valley Stormwater Coalition, whereas the City of Utica, along with the County of Oneida and many neighboring municipalities, has been designated as a municipal separate storm sewer community, and whereas a result of this designation, the city has obligations that are best served by cooperating with communities who share common concerns as well as common drainage basins and system. Therefore, further resolved that the mayor is authorized to execute agreement and any other documents necessary, the intent of this resolution. Votes, please.
Nine yeas adopted.
Mr. President, I have to make a motion. We have several pieces coming out of committee.
Yep, is there a second?
Second.
Second, yeah, make it happen.
The first one is ordinance number 10, adding section 2-29-361 of the Utica Code of Ordinances, supplemental regulations entitled marijuana dispensary / retail. As amended.
Second.
9 yeas adopted.
The second one, Mr. President, is proposed ordinance number 11, ordinance amending the zoning code use table for marijuana dispensary / retail as amended on the floor.
Second.
Votes.
Nine yeas adopted.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to introduce pull ordinance number 12 out of committee. Ordinance amending the zoning map and districts for marijuana dispensary / retail, as in committee.
Your votes?
Sorry.
9 yeas adopted.
I'd like to make another motion to pull ordinance number 13 out of committee, ordinance amending the zoning map and districts for marijuana dispensary / retail.
Motion. Second.
Thank you, votes.
Keep forgetting.
9 yeas adopted.
The other one is proposed ordinance number 14, ordinance to rescind ordinance number 6 of 24 enacting a moratorium on medical marijuana dispensaries inside the city of Utica.
Second.
Dennis?
Dennis. The moratorium.
9 yeas adopted.
And Mr. President, I have one more motion to make, to pull an ordinance amending section 2-26-48 regarding sewer rents. It was ordinance number 62 of April 17, 2024 is repealed and replaced with the sewer rents as follows. Cost per 100 cubic feet, foot is 1.985. 18,500 is 1.655, 280,000 is 1.382, 1.2 million is 1.124, and the other one is 1.5 million, and that goes to 0.761.
Yeah, can I have a second?
Second.
Votes, please.
Six yeas adopted.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, please.
I'm sorry, which one was it? I have it written down.
I think it was.
Which one are we talking about?
Motion to
Discharging
discharge
what?
ordinance 9 and 10. Because they're like 40 pages each.
Okay, perfect, sounds good.
Motion to discharge towing option 1. Ordinance 9.
And option 2.
Can I just do it? Okay.
Motion
Second.
to adjourn?